Wait, I have to tell you something. This is too good. My boss asked me to send him a list of who was coming to this event that he was going to. And I was like, can I email it to me? And he's like, no, I'd like you to print it. Please print it. And I put it on his desk, and I have a lot of other stuff to do, so I'm not happy I have to print it. He goes, thanks. He takes out his phone. He takes a picture of what I printed for him and throws the paper away. It's nuts.
In 1996, Scholastic began publishing Animorphs. Over the next 6 years, Catherine Applegate and her husband, Michael Grant, under the pseudonym K.A. Applegate, produced 54 main series books, several spin-offs, and inspired a TV series, graphic novels, and a cult following. We can't tell you where we live. We can't even tell you our last names. But we can tell you our thoughts and feelings on this series, book by book. I'm Miranda.
I'm Eddy.
And I'm Chris.
And we are the Anidorks. These may be kids' books, but we discuss dark themes and mature content. There may also be some explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Chapter 5!
This chapter is like frickin' an energy drink while playing Mountain Dew while taking a shot of Halo with your buds.
A shot of Halo with your buds.
Yeah, like this chapter is like extreme marketing. It's like jumping out of a helicopter with a snake. It's like so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember Danny Way. Remember Danny Way. Do you remember when Danny Way broke his foot and on the big air competition on the mega ramp?
No.
And then he got back up with a broken foot and got third, I think. He didn't even win. But he had
Miranda, I'd just like to point out that earlier Chris said, make it quick to you, and you were talking about...
Oh, I was going to cut me saying make it quick, and now I have to fucking keep it because you said that bullshit.
You're not talking about Danny Way. I thought that was the guy from My Chemical Romance.
Yeah, I was like, I know Gerard Way and Mikey Way, but I don't know Danny Way.
Also good. All right, back to chapter 5.
Who wants to read it?
Chapter 5. Hork-Bajir. A Hork-Bajir walks out of a skateboard tree and says...
Another Hork-Bajir comes out and they hug.
Chase scene. Turns out there are 2 Hork-Bajir and they're being pursued by human controllers. An alarm is sounding from the hole. The hole, Eddy?
Weird.
The hole?
Weird choice.
Like, you're like, I'm going to summarize this by saying the hole.
For some reason, it's like, gotta have
Rachel...
the alarm coming out of the hole. I, like, stuck that in there, so...
It would have been more thematically appropriate for it to be a gash in these books.
Yeah.
But
no, it's a hole in these books.
Tobias and Rachel decide to help the Hork-Bajir, though they're slightly reluctant. He thinks it's kind of hot how brave Rachel is. Tobias begins to thought speak with the Hork-Bajir.
Chapter is bonkers. This chapter is very fun.
Yeah.
We do get that Tobias is like, oh, a year ago that name would have meant nothing to me. And so we know that it's been less than a year.
Yeah.
In response to Hork-Bajir, because he's like, now I know Hork-Bajir. And he says that Elfangor told them they were once a decent species. Like mid, like not
mid-tier.
Like maybe like a B tier at best.
Yeah.
But now, like,
they're okay.
Yeah, they're totally possessed by Yeerks, and they're just walking killing machines.
Which I don't get. I mean, I don't really
I
appreciate it, because I think Hork-Bajir's standout species. Like, I feel like they're...
Do you think that it was like
great.
a kind, decent people? Like, not decent as in quality, but decent as in good?
Yeah. I would,
or moral?
I mean,
Well, you know, when you pair it with the peaceful that comes directly after it, I can see how you would think that, but I know how Elfangor
yes,
felt.
exactly. Like, I know how the Andalites talk about other races, and so...
It's true.
They were
It's true.
okay.
Yeah.
I should stop doing them any favors.
Yeah. That is actually what he'd probably call a decent people.
S tier. That's an S tier.
But not to Elfangor.
No, Andalites are the only S tier in Andalite
And then
eyes.
it's down 3 ranks before they start listing anyone else.
Yeah, there's no one in A tier. We have people who want to be Andalites but aren't. Like,
Yeah.
and there's none of them.
In B tier, we just have pictures of Andalites. Like the idea of pictures of Andalites.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
yes.
This scene's got everything. It's got like motorcycles revving up. It's got humans with guns. Humans always be having guns, yo.
They do.
It's so nuts.
It's to keep up with the Hork-Bajir. They've got weapons, so the humans need weapons.
I think this chase goes over like 3 chapters, right? Like I think it's
a long chase.
And it's a great
I do
chase,
have some-
actually, I think.
It's great.
It's so good.
Yeah.
The action that is about to happen is like some of the most like, you know what? It has a lot of parallels to D&D. You're a first level character, and the first time you do like something cool with your character, you cast 1 spell in a combat and it does something big. But then suddenly you're level 5 and you're doing like 8 things every turn.
Yeah.
You're just like, and that's what this feels like. Like we're that level. We know what our pact is about. We know which deity gives us our power, and we know to fly straight at a man holding a shotgun.
Yeah.
But that's not.
I
This
also
chapter.
feel like Kay Applegate played a video game. Like I think she played
Yes.
Tomb Raider or something, Crash Bandicoot.
You know what? She
like,
probably took the Andalite paycheck and was like, you know what? I'll stop by one of these so-called arcades.
it is. It's arcadey. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when
I'm sorry. I do have some problems with some things that happen in this chapter.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be, I don't want to be the guy who gets us off course here, but
Yeah.
there's a sentence, and the whole sentence is wild, but just so up from the hole in the ground, humans poured. As a whole sentence, I have an issue. But can you pour up from something? Pour out, pour down, pour
I think
over.
so.
You can pour
I'm
over.
thinking about it. Usually, the audience
No.
at home needs to see how many hand gestures I've currently tried to pour.
No, I
up.
think Miranda's right. I feel like pour implies a downward
I've got it.
gravitational
I've got it.
pull. Yeah.
right?
So I've got it.
What?
You ready? You have the hiccups, and you need to drink from the far end of the cup, and you pour up into your mouth.
You pour up into your mouth
Into
to
your
drink
mouth. That
upside
is
down.
the
You're
only
still
correct-
pouring
it's
down though because
rimming
it's
the pocket
down. You're
first
just
is-
upside down.
Right, but it's
still
up
down.
to you. So
No,
if it's
it's
a second, no, it is up to you.
Can I say, where's the sentence? It's very Cormac McCarthy sounding, actually. Like,
No,
Oh my God! You know, I'm getting No Country for Old Men.
this whole paragraph reads like it was written by an alien she asked to write one paragraph of this book. Because it's
Which it turns
and
out
that's
Cormac
when
McCarthy
things
was the entire time.
Yeah. And that's when things really broke loose. Up from the hole in the ground, humans poured. Armed humans. Men and women, dressed in an array of normal-looking human clothing.
that's where you lose the Cormac McCarthy. Normal
That's where
looking.
you come back. But normal, yeah, but everything
Lab
up
coats.
into there is actually everything up into that is quite a tone. She's hitting a lot of like bodily tone.
I
to
agree.
It.
I want to unpack what are we imagining when we imagine an array of normal looking human clothing? What falls into that? What
T-shirts and jorts.
Crocs, yeah.
I would say jeans
Flip-flops.
of any length, maybe some Converse, maybe some people who look like they're going hiking, but some
Yes.
people who look like they're getting ready for a business meeting. Like
It's
some
what
people,
Yeerks think is
all-
normal looking. So.
You know what? All crop tops. Belly's out.
Yeah.
Free the belly.
I don't know if it had had its
They're all
moment
saying that
yet.
as they
no,
dress.
actually,
Free the
they're all
belly.
dressed like Britney Spears.
Free
You're
the
right.
belly. Yes.
I like to think they were, before the alarm started going off, they were all in those uniforms that in the 5th book they're all wearing with the different color.
Oh, on the spaceship?
Yep.
Yeah.
They're uniforms. And then when the alarm goes off, they all, quick, to your normal looking clothing, and they're all changing quickly into flip flops and things like that.
Normal looking human
Yes, normal
clothing.
looking.
Yeah. Oh man.
And then my other big issue, those motorcycles Chris mentioned, because we get motorcycle chase. It's
Brand
very
name.
great. Except they're brand name, but are they dirt bikes or are they motorcycles? Because the term seems to be being used interchangeably, and as far as I'm aware, those terms are not interchangeable.
So why mention the Yamahas?
I think
and
there's
the,
semantic overlap.
why mention
But
Yamaha?
a dirt bike is usually not like a street legal.
What were the two?
Yamaha
what were
and
the two
Kawasaki.
names?
Yamahas and Kawasaki's.
Dirt bikes are not street legal. You're correct. They don't have to be. Right. Yeah.
They have to be
You're
dirt
absolutely right about
bikes, though, right? Because they're driving through woods. Are they on a trail?
You would think it would be more helpful to be on dirt bikes in the woods.
But dirt bike is going to be... So dirt bike actually semantically is a little confusing because when we were kids, we used to call mountain bikes dirt bikes as well, and they were unpowered.
I don't remember anybody saying that, but...
I'm just saying, like, people call them dirt bikes.
Before or after motocrossed? Because that's where I learned.
Well, so motocross...
The Disney Channel original movie?
Yeah.
The DCOM? Okay.
Yeah. So... Maybe it was just our neighborhood was getting this wrong, but like some of the kids that I biked with called them dirt bikes because they went in the dirt. It's not necessarily a strict tire. It's it's more of like a Venn diagram, much like we were talking about with Tobias's identity and about how he's just trying to figure out who he is, and he goes to describe something concretely, and then he's like, it's sort of my territory. It's like, it's sort of a fuzzy boundary.
It's sort of a dirt bike or maybe a motorcycle.
He can't tell if he's a dirt bike or maybe a Harley Davidson, you know? just like.
Here's my question.
Because that's another thing entirely. There's motorcycles and then there's hogs.
Yeah.
I
think they're on hogs.
yes.
It would say, hogs poured forth from the hole. Like,
and hogs is thematically appropriate for a book. Upward, out of the hole, blossoming hogs,
spouting
into spouting, the font of hog.
I want that on a shirt. The font of hog.
The font of hog.
When I imagined the Hork-Bajir coming up, I imagined the Hork-Bajir climbing a ladder. But then we get humans coming out with weapons, and then we get
pouring up. I'm never gonna get over that.
Yo, dude, we're not finishing. We're not even getting to chapter 9.
We are.
It's gonna be so good. We're gonna like be so responsible, and then it'll be like pouring up.
But how is it an up? What do they call them? An up tube? What do we call them?
An up shaft.
An up shaft.
No, down shaft.
An down shaft.
An upward down shaft.
An upward down shaft.
Are the motorcycles riding up the up shaft? Like, are they?
The up down shaft. Yeah. That might be what it is. The up down shaft. Yeah.
I think it might be the up down shaft.
How big is the hole? It was covered by a tree.
Roughly tree sized. Yeah. We're in California. That could be a redwood.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it was big. I think I'm willing to have the suspension of disbelief of like they pour out of this thing and whatever it was like more of a gradual ramp.
Ramp. I don't know why that's the most ridiculous thing you could have said to me.
I think
within the hole was a gradual ramp.
That this 8-foot hole had a gradual ramp.
It has to be accessible for OSHA compliance. They have to have, and it just makes sense.
Actually, it goes on for 3 miles to get you the 400 feet in the air that it needs to go.
Dude. It's like a parking garage spiral ramp.
I can't work with these people. Well,
I
need new Anna Cool Kids.
You know someone.
You guys used to be Anna Cool Kids.
You know someone tripped on those steps.
You sounded like Anidorks.
You know someone tripped on those steps in the janitor's closet.
And fell 3 miles down into Yeerks.
Well, they had no railing, if you remember.
to which they said, back so soon. Double dipping, are we?
Okay, so they start talking to the Hork-Bajir. They're going to give them some advice. We move on to chapter 6. Yeah?
6.
Yeah,
which
they
is
do the
another short description.
They do the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So if these guys are running from the Yeerks, either they're free or they're just not with them, and whichever it is, we want to help.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So chapter 6, the chase scene. The chase scene continues. Tobias guides the Hork-Bajir through the woods, and it's almost like it's a video game. It's a lot of left-right dodge. Rachel reminds him that he has the advantage here. He knows these woods better than anyone. So again, quick chapter.
Eddie, I'm calling your bluff. What would the cheat code be? If you had to pick buttons from a PS2 controller, what would you make the cheat code?
Left down, right up, left down, right up, R1, R2, L1, R2. That's Grand Theft Auto.
That sounds great.
Yeah, that's Grand Theft Auto. Is that like invulnerable, access all guns?
All weapons are up, down, up, down, up, down. Was get rid of the stars.
Yeah. Nice memory.
It's the only cheat code I remember, I think.
I remember No More Road Splats from Frogger. I don't remember what you had to do to pull up the thing, but there was a way to pull up like an enter cheat code thing, and then you'd literally type them, and one of them was No More Road Splats is Infinite Lives. Oh, how do you turn this thing on? That was Age of Empires 2 to get the car. Yes, so we're still in the chase. I guess the thing I want to talk about here is just how
Rachel and Tobias talk about the Hork-Bajir because they've from jump, they talk about the Hork-Bajir like they're condescending.
Yeah.
They talk about them like these jerks, these
Yeah.
idiots, like they're frustrated almost like a parent when like they're talking about a kid in a way that's like not so great. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're like
It's true.
they're like specifically like they're not the brightest and like things like that, and it's like I don't.
But that's what they're bringing to the table. They've literally never worked with a Hork-Bajir before, which is what we're all saying. It's just like, how does a Hork-Bajir being the most threatening enemy we've seen to date, in most cases,
tank, yeah.
like we see Hork-Bajirs and we're like, oh fuck, they're gonna just do us in. And then why, like, where does the dumb part come in? Like, what was dumb about them when they were kicking your ass 3 books ago?
Right, and it's like just because they can't follow your very specific directions in an environment they've never been in before when unyeerked.
I would not thrive in that environment, and I test very well.
And also, like, remember Chapman in book 2 when he got control of the body again for the first time in a while? Like, he couldn't, like, physically work right for the first while. Like, and like, yeah, they've shown us in Yeerk pools, like when the Yeerk comes out of your head, you gain control of your body back. But if this has been going on for like a really long time, how used to they are even controlling their bodies in a normal way, and then they come up and they're like seeing scenery that they've only ever seen from the back seat, and a bird is yelling at them in thought speak.
Frankly, they're doing the best that they can do in an unhospitable situation.
Yes, yeah.
Like, for sure.
Yeah, I also wonder, so their guide to the universe is andalites, right? Like, I mean, I guess also the Alchemist, but
the humans, you mean, the children.
Yes, yeah. But Axe is the one largely giving information to them about this new world that they're in. And also, I wonder if there's some weird thing, just it's like, to them, the Hork-Bajir lost. Like, they've all been enslaved by the Yeerks. They're all infested. Does that inform how you think about, like I don't know, especially to a kid?
I don't know.
It's such a good question, because what is going through their head that they're helping the Hork-Bajir? All they know is that they want to escape.
Well, it's the enemy of my
enemy. It's my friend's cousin. But the point is, do they think that they're Yeerk defectors? Or do they think that they're Hork-Bajir defectors?
They don't know yet at this point. So yeah, why are they like immediately like they're just dumb Hork-Bajir when they don't even know if there's Yeerks in their head at this point?
Right.
They might be they might have a Yeerk in their head and they're fighting back.
Right. Yeah.
And they're just like, whatever.
Were you too
stupid Hork-Bajir?
Were you too frustrated at all that they didn't just jump right to wanting to help the Hork-Bajir? Because I felt that, and I don't think that's fair. But I
don't think it's fair either, but I did feel it.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think that's a totally understandable reaction because they didn't even identify them immediately as fleeing the other group of controllers. Like, they didn't fully understand that at first. And so, like, their innate reaction is, like, Hork-Bajir usually mean problems, and then they had to do, like, a full 180 on their thinking.
Yep.
And so, like, it took a second.
As a reader, there's no life threat. Like, we think Taxons are cute.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we were actually in the books, canonically, they would not be cute.
No.
Like we know, later in this book, they devour a bobcat whole.
Saddest moment in the book.
It's true. But if we had viscerally ever seen something like that, it would be almost unthinkable that it would be cute.
Yeah.
I like that you said visceral.
Visceral, yeah.
Yes.
Good album name for him.
What was the thing at Christmas where it was like Jesus in his meat suit?
Right, we were like vaguely trying to translate something that was Latin, and it was like Jesus
carne,
made of meat, and we were like,
Jesus,
oh, it's the Lord incarnate. It's the Lord incarnate. Yeah, it's like God made of meat, and we were like, oh no, okay, yes, this does track. Like,
Yeah.
Oh man, 2 little details at this juncture in the chase thing. They're like, there's a couple of cute things that Tobias points out about how the chase is going, where he's like, okay, stop clearing a path to run away from someone.
Yeah.
Like, stop making a trail in which someone can follow you faster than you can make the trail. I'm like, that's just good advice. And is a risk out there for all trailblazers. That's right. Someone's going to ride your coattails straight to the top.
Remember to close those doors behind you, girls.
Close those doors behind you. Hashtag girl, gaslight, girl boss. What is it?
Hashtag gatekeep, gaslight, girl boss.
Girl boss. And just set your tuxedo on fire. And then the other thing is they're leading them through the forest and they're figuring out where to take them. And they're like, we're running out of real estate. We're running out of like places to go. We're going to have to cross this ravine or whatever. Is it a ravine? Do you guys remember?
It's like a stream.
It's like a stream. And Tobias is like, hey, if he's thought speaking to these Hork-Bajir and like telling them directions. And he's like, hey, can you guys swim? Slice a twig a little bit. If you can swim.
Slice the next tree if you can swim. And he does. Yeah. And he's like, okay, cool, they can swim. He's like, okay, you can swim. And like reading that thing, I'm like both happy that K.A. remembered that communication in this moment would be difficult. Yeah.
Like K.A. had the thought of like, well, they can't just talk to each other. But it actually might have read as more natural if for some reason they spoke Gallard for a second or I don't know, or if they knew enough English.
Even if it was like an emphatic slash, like, or a frustrated slash, like, yes.
He gave them
yes.
He gave them the instruction before he gave them an opportunity to answer. So, like, he said, do this. So he doesn't know if they speak any English at all, which we will find out they do speak some. So, like, the other thing that gets introduced here to ramp up the stakes of our chase, we get trucks and people in the trucks with shotguns. There's a cool
You're moving
description.
into chapter 7?
No, I'm chapter 6 still.
All right, sorry.
Very video gamey.
Yeah, there's a cool description of what happens to a tree that gets hit by a shotgun that just felt very visceral, but also, like, true.
Ooh, read it.
True to how a tree looks when it gets hit with a shotgun at decently close range. I could see the pellets tear a tree trunk to wet sawdust. And that's just like, I don't know, that hit right for me. I was like, that is what a shotgun does to a tree.
Yeah. Which I would just want to continue emphasizing. I felt that way about this. And action scenes in these books have been some of the things that I've been least excited to get to. Like, they just haven't. I think back to the anonymous quarry that one fight took place in earlier in the books. I was like, where are we?
Of rock
it was
in
like
the ground.
an arena that just didn't actually factor into the environment. And this feels like it uses this space really well. The stakes felt real. It's a chase scene, but like Chris, like you're pointing out, there's also this problem of communication that's happening. Like, that's a cool, exciting problem to have to solve. And there's details like the wet sawdust. Yeah, like there's just like a lot of things working.
It all like comes together to like convalesce into a very cool, coalesce is the word I wanted, not convalesce. Coalesce into a very cool chase scene that reads well, reads cool, reads high stakes, but also doesn't feel like it's rushing you through it, if that makes sense. Like, it's a very successful scene in the book that takes several chapters to do, but like they're all very fun.
Yeah. That actually felt more placed than I had ever like felt in these books. Like, it's something about like, you know what it is? It's like whatever the descriptions are doing for me, it's like I can keep the camera moving from thing to
well
thing,
situated,
and I don't lose track of where the camera is.
Right, the director is pointing your eye to the right place. It almost feels like we've got a good director behind the camera in these moments telling us where to look.
Which makes sense because they're leveling up as they write. And it was the tax on podcasting. We compared it to podcasting. That was really good too. When they're flying over the Taxan planet. And I think there's something with like the sun line.
Yes. And there are a couple moments, and I'm not sure if it was just my attention was waning. There are a couple moments with the disorientation effect later that don't feel as strong as this exact chase scene. But I was just so grateful that there was such a like set piece, like a diamond that was like, this is actually just compelling action. And it's in a place in the books where action usually doesn't get this much attention.
No, the first half of the book having this much action is not even first half. We're still in the first quarter.
Yes.
Like,
well, that can't possibly be true because we've been recording for 2 hours. So I think a really good point of comparison for me of like, what we're saying is like, this really works. And one that, it wasn't a big thing. It was like one short scene, but it felt by comparison a little phoned in, is when Tobias saves not Jara Hami, Jar Hamis.
Kalashi?
Yeah. When
I think I got that
when he
right.
dives in
Kalashi's
and the
wife, it's Ket something.
Yeah, the other.
Yes, this is the exact moment I was thinking.
And it's
of.
like, it almost like...
I lost track of everything.
Like, it felt a little bit like cartoon hijinks.
And that, I think, was intentionally disorienting to a certain extent.
Exactly.
But, like, and that's what they've done by giving themselves the Elemist in this book, is given themselves license to be like, it was intentionally disorienting because we literally moved a character from one place to another, like, essentially magically.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said before, it's like this being so moment to moment and contiguous and scannable, it's just such a gift. It's like, so good.
Well, let's finish out.
The only thing that comes close is the drunk teenagers shooting.
Yes.
That was a great, and that was like a chapter 1 or 2.
Yeah.
That was their intro chapter for some reason.
Dylan was slightly disoriented.
And Dylan Dan.
Dude, it was disorienting, but you know what?
Memorable character.
We got the Dylan Dan we deserved.
Yes.
That's true. Oh, but remember the circus? The circus was good too.
Yeah.
Dude, oh my god.
When Rachel impaired that guy.
These books are pretty good.
From the Elephant Police.
Oh my god, these books are so good. We've been reading these books for 2 years, you guys.
Chris, do you want to take the book 7?
Absolutely. Chapter 7. Conclusion of the chase. Rachel warns Tobias that he cannot lead them that way, the way they're going. 2 pickup trucks will cut you off. Tobias says they'll just have to take care of the trucks. They intercept the trucks as they're racing along. Each truck has a shotgun-armed controller in its bed. Tobias and Rachel start eating eyes, which is shorthand for they are attacking and going for the eyes.
They're like, we're going to have to take out the guys with guns, and they're both in bird morph still, and there's only one thing we do to people when we're in bird morph.
The Hork-Bajir charge out in the path of the trucks. The first leaps over the truck, but the second one gets hit. Kalashi, my wife! The first Hork-Bajir shouts. My wife! I can't do it. Thank God I can't do it. Controllers spill out of the trucks to seize the stunned Hork-Bajir. Tobias and Rachel tell the first Hork-Bajir he has to flee with them or he'll be dead.
So this whole chapter, obviously, still in the great midst of the action. We do, Rachel is the one who's like, all right, we need to get rid of the guys with guns. And continuing to be down bad for life, Tobias's response is, Rachel, have I ever mentioned that you're extremely cool?
Yeah. Very Scott Pilgrim with Ramona Flowers kind of energy.
Yeah, and they do that, and it's a lot of fun. They eat eyes. But honestly, the biggest reveal of this chapter is that our new Hork-Bajir friend is a wife guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm here for that energy.
Yeah. And there's questions, like, I think in the astonishment of Tobias and Rachel, or I forget who it is exactly in the book, but in the astonishment, like, just sort of a first exposure to a strong lack of sexual dimorphism or biological sexual dimorphism.
Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah. It's like neat to have a book that's putting forth that challenge. Like, I saw 2 of the sames, and they're meaningful. There's significant others to each other.
You know, this
is a really cool concept.
It actually makes everything we're going to get into with Marco talking about, like, well, why aren't they more gendered?
Yeah.
Like, he's almost commenting on the book's decision to not Mrs. Pac-Man it. Like, the book's like, no, that's not what it's like.
Also, in canon, like, not in the meta, it's sort of like, methinks the lady doth protest too much. Yeah. Where it's like, Marco, come on, bud. Like, we all know you're holding your
How do we know you're a girl if you don't do this? Like, that's,
As we transition to chapter 8, it will become clear what we're talking about because after they get the husband Hork-Bajir to run because they're like, we can't save your wife if you die too. They have your wife. You need to run.
I was devastated at that.
It was like they ripped my heart out. I was like, this guy's wife is going to die.
Yes.
And we're going to have to live with this poor man and find him a new wife. And it's going to be the Hork-Bajir Bachelor. And I'm actually getting kind of excited now.
Ooh, Hork-Bajir Bachelor.
Hork-Bajir Bachelor is a great series. I love it. My favorite is the Yeerks Bachelor in Paradise.
They have to come down from their thrones, their tiny goblets.
The big secret is that someone in here is in the Council of 13, and it might be the Emperor. Even they don't know.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much.
Well, can I say, I think actually this is going back to what we were talking about before with how they talk about, this is like a generous read. And I actually don't even think it's a generous, I think it's actually accurate. It's how the kids talk about the Hork-Bajir. They're so kind of dehumanized, or they're condescending to the Hork-Bajir. But then they find out that the Hork-Bajir, oh, they have wives. They're just like there's a little bit of like a humanization that's happening. And I think
for sure,
that's part of the movement that's happening over the books, is them coming to care about these Hork-Bajir, right?
Yes.
Like that's a little.
Yes.
And if we didn't start from a more negative place, then it wouldn't be as big a movement into the positive place.
But it is hard to wrap your head around, like, man, because they are like, it's almost like bullying slightly. It's like it's not how you want to see the characters, these kids behave.
Like microaggression-y.
Yeah.
It's like it's like
they call them like dim-witted and stuff. And
it's
I'm
so
like,
intense. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. The tonality it's thick. It's something that like in the zeitgeist of now would be completely legible as problematic.
You would have one character doing that, and everyone else calling out that character.
Yeah.
But there's no. That's the thing.
Yeah.
There's no one checking. You don't even have Cassie there, and we hope that Cassie would behave like this. But you don't even have Cassie going, "Why are you talking? Like, do you hear yourself?" Like, we don't have. One of them's not doing that.
Oh man, which would have been like a really. But do you know how many chapters it would have like cost to set that up?
Yeah.
Like
to have
we would have
Cassie be
needed.
there too.
We would have. You know what? We would have needed to go to the Packard thing or whatever.
Yeah.
we would have needed an entirely. I mean, I guess we did technically, but like we would have needed a lot of time.
Yeah. So chapter 8.
Cut to Cassie's barn. Tobias and Rachel catch everyone up regarding the Hork-Bajir. As always, we hear a lot about the barn. Marco at once cannot get over the existence of girl Hork-Bajir, and yet also seems to be about this close to unlocking gender as a performative act.
Hork-Bajir.
And yeah, I think we Hork-Bajir. And I think we should stop and talk about this, because I'm like, this reads either uncharacteristically stupid of Marco, or like a little too far, because I'm like, either he thought they were reproducing asexually and had thought it through, or he didn't think about the fact that this is needed to reproduce at all. And that feels a little stupid for Marco. Like, that feels a little too dumb.
Yeah. Which I guess, like, the thing is, he's just like saying like pretty sexist things about how. What exactly does he say here?
Yeah.
Miranda, you have it up?
Yeah, it's unfortunately a very normal thing for Marco. He says, do the women put makeup on their wrist blades? Do they use nail polish on those big nasty toes?
Right, he's like, how do we tell the difference between them, right?
Do they cry at chick movies? Do they get all goo-goo when they see a baby? And then he's like, do they get weird about bugs and snakes?
He cannot let it go. Yeah.
But in the middle of that, he's like, oh, but maybe it's a setup. He's like, maybe this whole thing is a trap or a setup. But the real question is, do female Hork-Bajir get all weird around bugs and snakes? I'm like, we actually maybe should revisit the trap question.
It's actually, well...
You're wrong. He's wrong, but like, they should have talked about it.
But you're right. Like, he's being used for his smartness, but then he's also so sexist that it's like... highly disconcerting, because you just want someone who can reason so clear-headedly about something to also be able to spot their own bias and be self-aware, and yet this is an example where he fails to do that with flying colors.
Santiago showed me a TikTok the other night where there's like this kid like taking, he's like a 14, he's probably around the age of the Anidorks actually, like taking like posing, like there's someone taking a picture of him and he's like posing in front of a truck, and then someone clearly like in the background, like he's trying to look really tough in front of this truck, and someone sets off the car alarm and he shrieks and his hands fly to his mouth like yes! And then he like slaps the truck, and it's so funny because the jump happened so quickly, and that's how I imagine Marco like in this scene.
Because Marco, when he says, you know, do female Hork-Bajir get all weird around bugs and snakes, Cassie's like, is that how girls are, Marco? And she just reaches into a drawer that apparently is full of snakes.
Good. It's so good.
And throws, it says, lightly tosses a garden snake. I don't know if that means a garter snake or if
I wondered. I thought, do I have
one would find in their garden?
I thought, do I have that wrong? Like, is it?
When I was a kid, I thought it was garden snake.
No, I think it's a garter snake. It's a garter snake. Garter.
Yeah. Well, I think garter snakes are commonly found in gardens, but I thought it was garden snake for a lot of my life, so it may just be a catch-all term for harmless snakes that show up in your gardens, which are often garter snakes.
It's a common name for small to medium-sized snakes belonging to the genus Thamnophis.
Garter
in the
snake
family
is.
Colubridae. Yeah,
No.
garter snake. Yeah.
Garter snake is? Not garden? Okay.
Garter, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so...
No, it's a North American snake specifically.
But here, says difference between a garter snake and garden snake. I Googled that. And it says they're one and the same, which is very confusing.
Okay, so it may just be like a colloquialism. Yeah, it may be
garter. Like, it makes sense that the word is so close.
It was probably garter snake, and so many people thought it was garden snake that became an accepted name.
That's what I just read.
Of the snake.
Yes. Commonly
although
misstated as garden snake is what it said.
So yes, Marco screams, is like, get it off me. And they all tease him. He's like, okay, fine. Can we please be more mature? And Rachel's like, if you left, we'd automatically be more mature. And Jake's like, guys, get it together. So Jake asks what happened to the Hork-Bajir who got hit by the truck. And he specifically calls it the female, which is a bit of a loaded term. But Rachel and Tobias admit that they don't know. They don't know what happened because they had to leave. Mm-hmm. And
it is true. It is true that, like, we are going to get a very gendered story about Kalashi.
Yes.
She's going to be the wife.
She's the princess in another castle.
It's not possible that the universal translator fucked up and it's actually my hubby.
Yeah.
It's like she gets written like a wife based upon this assumption. And
it did make me think.
I would say it could be worse.
Yes.
It could be worse.
A very simple thing I feel like that would have made it more interesting and less familiar is just if she was the one. It seems very it's nothing either of them did that.
Agreed. She
got hit by the truck and he didn't. She could have been the one and she said, my husband! And we could have gotten a different story, but it does kind of feel like
Absolutely.
What I appreciate is that we're not actually going to spend the whole book saving her. She gets saved pretty quickly.
Yes. Really quickly, yeah.
And I will say,
right.
once we save her, she's not.
No.
She's she
You're right.
totally has agency and is acting in the plan to save both of them to rescue themselves together.
Yeah.
So yes, right now she's a little bit of a damsel in distress, but she doesn't stay that way, and I appreciate that.
I do want to hit one note because when I just want to hit this, but when Jake calls everyone to stop horsing around and get down to business, he said, Jake threw up his hands in exasperation. Is there any chance we could stick to business? And then Marco says, I remember when Jake used to be fun. Now he's such a grown-up. And then Jake replies, I was never fun. And the never's in italics. And
it's very cute. Yeah.
And
Marco,
I love it.
Marco also responds, no, you were never smart, but you were always fun. But also, I thought you'd want to hit this, Chris. Jake says it with a tolerant smile. I thought we could get a speed clocking from you. How fast?
Oh, yeah. Do you want to time?
On
do you
the
want me
rate
to
of
do
that
the smile and you'll time it? Get a stopwatch up. You got a stopwatch up? All right. Tolerant smile. So I have to go from no expression, right? Something like here. Okay, no expression.
Literally.
This is Keanu Reeves.
You're trying to keep the meaning on track.
This is Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
Eddy, I know a tolerant smile because
When are you starting?
What does that mean?
I'm already smiling. All right, give me a second.
You're not
to
in
reset.
character
Give me a second
yet.
to reset. All right, tell me when to start, Miranda.
Okay.
Okay, so Chris is very serious right now.
Go.
And, immediately one corner jumped up, which I felt was a little fast. Okay.
I'd say that took about 5.
Yeah.
It took about 5 seconds to full smile.
Can I try, actually? No, I want to.
Yeah, now.
I can't.
And the test is
It feels
blown.
gross to do,
we
actually.
have no data.
It feels very paternalistic on my face. That's the problem.
It does. You look good doing it.
All right.
Miranda, you don't want to give a go?
So,
Enough physical
I've never
gags for
been
one
tolerant.
episode.
I've never been tolerant.
So much for the tolerant left.
That's right. So Marco wonders why a Yeerk-infested Hork-Bajir would flee at all, and Rachel points out that she obviously thinks that they're free somehow.
Which this is the first time they're
Cassie?
saying that, right? Like,
Yes, they have. This is the first time that they have voiced that, like, obviously these are not Yeerked Hork-Bajir. Cassie,
Yeah.
5 steps ahead of the others, as usual, wonders how Tobias just happened to be at the right place at the right time to see them escape. And Tobias admits he wasn't even trying to go to that location. He was intending to be somewhere else.
yeah.
And it's a nice callback to the balance of Tobias's receptiveness to Axe's mirror wave call. Like, it's like them being the most sensy. I think there's something, maybe like if we had a less introspective book where Cassie got to defend the Hork-Bajir like we were talking about, maybe they would have added a plot where Cassie was also similarly affected by Ellimist intervention or something, or was taking note of environmental changes.
They probably
that made no
would have
sense.
picked Cassie if she could have been flying that day, but she wasn't.
Yeah. But I mean, but it was definitely, well, I even just mean that I think she would be the kind of person whose attention to detail and stewardship of nature would like put her in a good position to notice indirect changes.
Yeah.
So Axe asks, what do the Hork-Bajir want? Turns out no one else has asked yet.
Yeah.
And Tobias is troubled by Cassie's questioning of how he ended up there. We also have not an introspective moment, but a sort of an existential moment as they all think about the fact that these may be the only 2 free Hork-Bajir in the entire
galaxy. Like, or in universe even. Yeah, it extended even further.
I apparently skipped that in the bit that Eddy wrote. Eddy had written that and I missed it, but that's okay.
Eddy wrote it in the silly font.
And they all, even Marco is sort of sobered by that, about this, like, what if we were the only free humans left? And they're like, that's what it would be if the Yeerks took over Earth and we managed to escape somehow. Like, that's what it would be.
Yeah. I actually think this is just, like, it's a dialogue version of, like, how well handled I thought the last chapter was, the chase chapter. But, like, they have so much goofing around here, and then it feels really it's maybe like one of the most believable group dialogue scenes we've had, where they're kidding around, and then there's this moment where Axe says something that he's not even really thinking about, and the tone changes, and everyone takes it a little more seriously. Yeah. It's just cool how I feel like the books have a really good sense of who these kids are now, and like how they bounce off each other, and what each of them kind of is supposed to bring up, like how they're steering and how they're reacting to each other, you know?
In the beginning, they definitely tried to establish this stuff, but it felt like expositional almost in how strongly, like for example,
and then I say
remember
something.
certain scenes.
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But also they would use the group dialogue scene as a getting to know each individual member moment.
Yeah.
In early books, they'd all be talking at Cassie's barn. Someone would say something, and then the narrator would say why the person said that, because the person is like this.
Yeah.
In this book, who each Animorph is thing happened as a show, not a tell. So we saw them all acting naturally at school, interacting with the environment. And now we're in the expositional move the plot forward moment. And instead of having to explain why people are saying things, we're left to infer from what we know from the earlier chapters. And it works flawlessly. It's so strong because there's no immediate reinforcement. And I think that immediate reinforcement in the earlier books made them feel like kid books. It made it feel like they were trying to...
Rachel's not tanning.
It felt a little like being talked down to, you know what I mean?
Patronizing.
Rachel would be tanning. Cassie would have her hand down a raccoon's throat. Tobias would be sad and apart from the group up in the rafters. Marco's lolling on a hay
He's up in the rafters, but he's doing a job.
But even more, Marco would make a joke, and then it would immediately flip into Marco's kind of insecure and makes jokes all the time.
Right.
Like, it would be... It's like,
So chapter 9.
Yes.
It's an amazing chapter.
Did
we really hit everything in chapter 8?
I feel like
that's incredible. We're doing so good.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Chapter 9 is a bit of a lot. A bit of a lot. A lot of a bit.
A lot of a bit.
Yeah.
Just the bit. Just the bit.
Yeah, it's not a lot happens, and yet a very large amount is emotionally happen.
We're gonna try and do this. Yeah, this is like we're gonna zoom out from interpersonal to like political.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to take it, Chris?
Sure. I'll popcorn through this. So keep your eyes on the screens, y'all. The gang goes to see the Hork-Bajir at the cave they've hid him inside. Most of the kids remain hidden in Morph nearby. Only Tobias and Axe approach the cave popcornetti
Entrance. The group wants to maintain the illusion that they're a group of Andalites in case this is a trap. They don't trust the Hork-Bajir yet. Axe approaches first as an Andalite, so in his natural form. The Hork-Bajir strikes immediately upon seeing Axe, and Axe reacts defensively, so he's ready to fight. They're both ready to fight. Tobias de-escalates things, starting to thought speak with the Hork-Bajir, and coaxes him to exit the cave, to kind of show himself, because I think his blade just comes out at first.
Yeah.
The Hork-Bajir does leave the cave cautiously, and he says that his name is Jarahami, which Jake immediately hears as Jeremy. Should we just talk about that?
Yeah, we can just talk about that bit a bit. We get a dainty call on Axe's hooves.
Yep. Yeah, it runs in the family.
Yeah,
Halloran being his dad, that's a lie.
I just gotta call out dainty wherever I see it.
Yeah. The Daint! Mo, the Daint! It's a reference for 1.5 humans who still remember that horrible episode of The Simpsons.
Not the first reference you've made for one person in this episode, Chris.
We get that all the rest of the crew is in different morphs, and we find out what those morphs are now. So we know that Jake is here in tiger morph above the cave in case the fight gets out of hand. Rachel is still up as a bald eagle, and Cassie is up as an owl, so that if the sun sets, they've got eyes for light and dark.
And Marco,
I think, is hiding somewhere as a gorilla.
Yeah. Yeah, Jake's actually above the cave entrance, or he at least steps in. Once Axe and Jarahami kind of have this standoff, Jake comes into the blocking's complicated too because everyone's doing something.
He was above the cave. But now he's coming down a bit.
And they don't want
But let me know if this...
They're worried. They spend a little bit of time breaking down, the Hork-Bajir also assumed that they're Andalite.
Who could be Yeerked.
Could be Yeerked.
Yeah.
Probably, do believe that they're Andalite bandits.
Probably not.
And they don't want to break that illusion because they... aren't sure if it's a trap yet. They're not sure if they're Yeerked. And
And even if it's not a trap, if the Hork-Bajir gets caught again, the Yeerk that goes in him has all his memories and would know that they're human.
Yeah. And they're honestly not even sure if it hasn't even occurred to them that they might have some kind of emotional or personal investment in the Hork-Bajir. They're it's a vague sense of what is right, but they haven't come to care about Hork-Bajir yet, really, I think.
Totally.
Right.
And what's interesting about this whole ruse that we've now set up, because this is the reason why the Animorphs want the perception to be that they're Andalite bandits. So they have the Andalite approach first, thinking that is the best liaison into the Hork-Bajir environment. But the Hork-Bajir, we know, as readers who have finished the book, but also we're going to learn, are un-Yeerked. Hork-Bajir carry the bias that Andalites are not always good news.
Yes.
They are a problematic species even for free Hork-Bajir.
Yeah. Right.
They mean tampering.
I don't know that it goes that far.
Well, tampering's the wrong word because that involves actually the understanding that they're about to glean.
What's all that we hear about it is Jarahami sees Axe and he's like, "You're a Hruthine, an Andalite." And he's like, "Yes." He's like, "You gonna kill me?" And Axe is like, "No." And Jarahami is like, "Hruthine kill Hork-Bajir. Hork-Bajir kill Hruthine." And we are forced to sort of, put this on top of the knowledge we know of the Andalite involvement in the war of the Hork-Bajir, and the war, which was to the Andalites a war to save the Hork-Bajir. But we also know that this is a Hork-Bajir who's been living with a Yeerk in his head for a long time, and every time he's seen an Andalite, it's been bad.
It's been Visser 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Also, it's been Visser 3. Marco sings a little Barney song. He goes, I kill you, you kill me, we're an alien family. It's great. But I also had a big, I have a lot of unanswered questions by this interaction because it doesn't really get into it more than Axe saying, we tried to save you from the Yeerks, and Jirahime going, you failed. And he's like...
Which frankly is enough. I think that actually spoke for me, it was the opposite effect, where that spoke the volumes it needed to speak.
To me, so here's what we know, right? So, we know that Alarin unleashed a quantum virus on the Hork-Bajir homeworld. We don't know what that did. We don't know if the Hork-Bajir know that it was the Andalites that did that. We don't know if they just thought that the Andalites gave up on them and are therefore responsible for their deaths in that way, or if it's just because
didn't have the proper buy-in in the first place. If they were just their own version of colonial fuckery.
Which tracks, because we do know that the way that Axe and Elfangor and other Andalites have talked about, we know that they don't think of any other race as equals to them. And there is a way in which that also comes across as thinking of them as disposable, slightly disposable, or just not as valuable as Andalite lives.
For sure. And they've also been taught a false history about the wars that their people have fought. So their entire supremacy thing is built up on all this propaganda. Yeah. And Axe says he doesn't kill Hork-Bajir unless they're Yeerked. And Jirahime seems to maybe sort of be okay with that. He sort of laughs.
Can we just, because we're talking about a lot of these nuances, so I want to just pull the thread through the scene quickly.
Yeah.
So Axe and Tobias approach the cave, Axe as himself in his Andalite form, and Tobias as Tobias, and we don't expect that this Hork-Bajir, Jirahime, I almost call him Jeremy, would attack, but he does. He's kind of antagonistic towards Axe, and then we've kind of de-escalated, and now...
I'd say he's defensive.
Yeah.
I think
that's right, yes.
Keep going.
And now...
Yeah, but defensive,
they've stepped out, and they're actually beginning to have a conversation and unpack what this interaction is. So...
and in that moment, as Miranda was saying, when Axe says, I only kill Hork-Bajirs that are tools of the Yeerk army, Jeremy then feels it necessary to prove that he is not a member of the Yeerk army.
Yeah, because he's I'm free, no Yeerk in here, and they're like, but how do we know that's true?
This is I feel so bad because I don't want to talk about this before going to bed because it's going to give me nightmares.
Yeah.
But here we are at 10 o'clock talking about literally the scariest fucking part of the whole book. To prove that Jirahime is not a Yeerked Hork-Bajir, to confirm our theory that they are escapees, he takes one of his elbow blades. Wrist blades. And draws it against his own head. Carves out a sliver of his face. Right around the ear, I'm imagining.
That's where I saw it too.
And pulls it back to reveal that there is no Yeerk around his brain. And it is one of the most viscerally insane moments that the series has given us to date. Yes, there's been horrifying killing from the Chi. Yes, there's been moments of near death. Yes, but it's not quite as horrifying as the ants and Rachel when Jake moved the ant armies onto Rachel's body. That actually is probably scarier. But in terms of a book that's interrogating self and what it means to be self and how the body and the Yeerk plays a role in that, and whether or not I'm a bird or a boy, to then in the same book have a carving open of your own head to reveal a truth about yourself is so guttural and
also how much it means to this character, to this Hork-Bajir, to be free. This is what I'm willing to do. This is, and also I'm free now. This matters so little to me that I do this to myself because now I am myself again. That's what...
Although
it sets the stakes.
They do make it clear that it did hurt.
Yes.
They want you to know that it's not he did this because they don't feel pain.
No.
It hurt him.
But that's just that's what he's willing to do in order to prove this thing about himself.
in the movie, I would not be able to watch it.
No,
like this would be a scene I would watch through the fingers.
There's the Pan's Labyrinth scene that came to mind when I saw this, and I brought it up multiple times, I'm sure, but I think about it a lot and what it says about a character when they have them do things like that. Mm-hmm. And we do, though, get a cool little thing that's like, I guess Hork-Bajir have like a healing factor, that they heal much faster. And so within minutes when because he had sort of like pulled the wound open so that they could look at his brain, he pushes it back together, and it seems like within moments, like it starts to scab over and heal. Like he doesn't fully heal from it, but he is not like incapacitated himself, and he's not bleeding out here.
As I think it was you mentioned in your notes, it's like, oh, maybe less of these guys have been straight up murked than we thought.
Yeah, there might be more living Hork-Bajir from these fights than we thought. That might be why, because we're like, they've got a lot of Hork-Bajir, they're just throwing at the problem, and it's like, they might survive a lot of the wounds we leave them, even though we leave and they're incapacitated. If you can cut open your own face and it's like just pain and it goes away, like that's insane. Yeah.
That's nuts.
I just also want to hit this scene with the context that Axe just framed it into, like, especially for what this Hork-Bajir believes about himself. He might be, in this moment, the only free, and he doesn't know if his wife is alive right now, but he might be one of two living free Hork-Bajir, and like that's the weight that when he's like, no, I'm not infested right now, I am a free Hork-Bajir, like that's the weight that he's expressing there. And
it's one of the best pulled off, one of the best moments in the series to date. And there's been tons of good things. It's just like something about how this entire scene unraveled through a complete understanding of the logic each of the characters is putting into it.
Yeah.
Having Axe walk into the place first because they want to preserve their identity as Andalite bandits. And from that, the natural consequence of exploring the meaning of the free Hork-Bajirs and him having to reveal it, and also exploring the lore of them having failed to save the Hork-Bajir. It just feels like S-tier, like sci-fi level of detail, S standing for Star Trek, of course.
Of course.
But
and it kind of
I was gonna hit the rest of my pink, which is
Don't
go
say
for
that.
it. Go for it. Take it away. Sorry.
most
It's
likely to
pink
get
fun.
pounded in school. Like
I have a pink font in the notes, and
what was I gonna say?
I can't.
We've established we've established so much about this series, this world previously in the books, even in Andalite Chronicles, and now it emphasizes why it was important that Andalite Chronicles had to happen in order to get to a book like this. And now we can like truly see the complexities and nuances and details of this universe and starting to pay off in this book. Yeah,
and it's especially just coming fresh off the heels of Andalite Chronicles.
Yeah.
It's so nice to get the gratification after the work. Like, because it's not that it's delayed gratification. They are children's books, and the first books were plenty entertaining and plenty interesting, with plenty of thought-provoking things. It's just a great treat to get it now. Like, it's just we put in 3 books worth of work on the Andalite Chronicles, 17 episodes to some. And now it's like, oh man, we get to see the implications of that with our chosen 6. I love it. I love it.
The implications. And then after this, Jara says, like, he's just done this, and Miranda, tell me if there's like a beat I miss in here because there are so many details.
The only beat that I would say is, Tobias asks Axe if he saw Yeerk in there, and Axe says no, and Tobias follows up with, did that scare the pee out of you, Axe man, or doesn't that kind of thing bother you, Andalites? And Axe responds, I am as peeless as you, Tobias, my friend. And I just thought that was important for our brand.
Yes, and yet...
Yeah, the piss goes with...
But does not answer...
The piss goes with...
But it doesn't answer the, like, it does he pee?
Do Andalites pee?
Does he pee?
Yeah.
That's what Tobias wanted. But did you pee? Where did the pee come out, X?
It's a perfectly normal butthole in a perfectly normal place. I've been saying it for ages.
I
The
think
mouths
I've
are in
been
the
saying
hooves. The mouths are in the hooves.
No.
Miranda, you said they sweat their shit.
I did
You
say-
said no.
I
they
said
just
either
cleanly-
it's a perfectly normal
it turns
butthole in a
into
perfectly normal place.
It turns into Head and Shoulders, and they smell like $1 million. It's wonderful.
Anyway, Jara says that he starts.
We're talking about this at Easter.
He says that he is. Jara says that he is strong. He emphasizes this, and now we know because he's just shown us his brain. A certain kind of strength, but
Where the strength is.
but that he needs help
The anatomy of a strong boy.
for the Eddies of the world. That's where your strength is. But he doesn't.
It looks like a walnut, the toughest of fruits.
He admits he needs help, and he needs help saving. Does he say Kalashi? Is that what he says? His wife.
Yes,
And he doesn't
Kalashi.
gesture, expressing to Tobias and to Axe that it's immediately clear, even if they don't understand if they don't speak the same language, that he's lost someone that he loves. And and Tobias has this realization, oh, you love her. He has that dawning realization that there's a complexity that he's getting to his idea of
And there's a depth of feeling.
Yes, yeah. I also think we should we haven't said this, the Hork-Bajir do not clearly, fluently speak English. They know some, did we say this? They know some English because of their
We did
their
not say this.
Yeerkedness, what they've learned because it was deemed valuable that Hork-Bajir should be able to communicate in some English with the controllers, but they speak in a hybrid, they also are using their Hork-Bajir language.
But also that their language contains very few words.
Yeah, it's very limited.
500?
Yeah, I believe they said 500
That's what
words.
Yeah, which is
Andalite,
insanely
important
small.
to say, it's the Andalite understanding of Hork-Bajir culture.
True.
It could be like Tokipona. Tokipona is a language with 120 words, and you use extensive modifiers and context.
Yes, I'm just saying,
Context.
but it feels important that there's this, like we said already, this colonial context where the Andalites think of themselves as a superior culture trying to understand
It's
an
true.
inferior culture, and that's how they talk about them.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
And that,
fucking
my
Cassie-
friends,
Cassie
guys.
says that they have company coming, right? That's not what I meant.
that's not the end.
Do you want to set that up
That's not the
a
end.
bit better?
We have company,
Do you want to
Cassie says.
actually? Do you want
Oh
to do a little bit of a better job? It's would you like to give that the tone?
Guess
and
who's
weight it
coming to
deserves?
dinner?
No, it's frickin' Visser 3 again.
Cassie says we should wrap this up. We have company, meaning that there are enemies approaching.
Remember the dinner party? We're going to Darlene's later. They just got her house rebuilt.
Visser 3's coming for
Oh
a
my
tea
God.
party.
Did you say Mr.
Visser
3?
3. Mr. Visser.
Did you say Mr. 3? Mr. 3 is really good, and I think Marco might have said
As the
it
music
earlier,
is coming
but
in
it-
here, I just want to make clear there is a threat.
my
They
Yeah,
are
I
in
think it was
danger.
early on, what did he call himself? Mr. 3?
Mr. 3?
Thanks for listening to Anidorks. We'll be back soon with lots more to say. Until the Andalites return, or at least until next time. See you soon.